What's up, everybody? You know what night it is. It is Friday night cards and cake. Back to my chocolate red velvet combination right here. Fortunately, they cut a really big slice of the red velvet, even though they're still kind of screwing me on the double chocolate. But I'm very excited to gobble that down later. I didn't work out today, but I did walk like 8 miles. So, kind of balances out. Anyway, on this live stream, we got a first timer. We got Flippin' Steve. I'm sure you already watch him on his channel. Very smart dude. He definitely has that flipper investor mindset that we're going to dive into because we could all learn how to refine our strategy by learning from other investors and flippers and seeing what's working and what's not. So I'm very excited to bring Steve on. And before we dive into that, let me get a couple housekeeping things out of the way. For one, I started an Instagram page that I will probably be very inconsistent on, and I will probably abandon in a couple weeks. But while it's there, you can find me on Instagram at the Comeback Card Investor. Heads up, any comments I'll look at comments, but more than likely, I just want comments to be kept on YouTube because I can't have too many tabs open in my life. But definitely want to at least see you and connect with you on Instagram. And if I can answer comments, I will, but I can't promise anything at this point. Also, we are getting closer to 15,000 of us, and I will talk about instructions to enter the giveaway, which will be a break of 2020 Prism football. I think it's 18 packs in there, so there'll be 18 winners, but I'll be going over that in the next couple of weeks on how you can enter. Next thing, shout out to David Hunter. I know a lot of you guys know who David Hunter is. Very smart dude, very analytical, and he helped me out with my weekly newsletter, which I sent out earlier today. He had a couple picks in there, a couple of cards that he thought were interesting to look at as a potential deal. So shout out to David Hunter. And if you know of someone in the supply chain logistic field in the Boston, Massachusetts area, David is looking for a job in that. He's very smart. So just let me know if you know of someone hiring in that field up in Massachusetts. Lastly, thank you to everyone that has used the promo code COMEBACK20 to test out market movers and see if it's right for you or not. As many of you guys know, I became an affiliate about a week and a half ago. So if you're interested in trying it out, seeing if it's right for you, you can get 20% off with COMEBACK20. And then it does give me a commission, which is a win-win situation all around. But if it's not interesting to you, if you don't want to try it, no worries. I just want to thank you guys for whoever has signed up, because that really helps me as well. So, oh no, Dustin's in here already? Oh my God. What's up, Matt? Good to see you, man. All right, let me do the catchphrase, then I'll have to make fun of Dustin's new haircut. Me and Steve will do that together. So welcome back. Now let's get to work. All right, Steve, what's up, my man? How are you?
Hey, what's up? Doing good,
Yeah, how about that intro? For one, we got to talk about Dustin's haircut, because I think this is the great icebreaker right here, because I actually have Dustin's haircut pulled up over here in a separate tab, and that was going to be a topic of discussion. And I need to ask you, Steve, and then we'll ask you in the audience, what is Dustin going for? Is it Starbucks barista turned social justice warrior, or is he going for a European soccer star?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking soccer. It's very Lionel Messi-like. It's hotter than the NBA modern market right now, though. I'll tell you that.
There it is. Their
haircut has gotten more attention than modern NBA.
Well, I'll give you really built Dustin up with the soccer player analogy. I was hoping you'd go with Starbucks barista turned social justice warrior, but anyway, very cool, man. Good to have you on. Let me say hi to some of you guys here. Charles is in the house. Matt, what's up, man? Tao. Yeah, there it is. Big Boy Cards and Collectibles. Michael Merlin Peck. Yeah, dude, he's backing you up as well. Let's see who else we got in here. Michael Ham, go Bucks. You're always up in the house too. JJ Bama. Yes, sir. You're right. And yeah, I guess I never thought of it, but good old Pogs. You remember Pogs back in the day?
Yeah.
So the thumbnail that I create always puts the person in the circle. So I guess it looks like you'd be a slammer though. You wouldn't just be a pog, you'd be a slammer.
My first bit of marketing, a pog.
Yeah, there it is. Bob, I do. I'm just, I wear a helmet now. So that's the lesson I've learned. All right. Anyway, so what's crazy is that I have not had a chance to really talk to you, Steve. So I've seen your videos, I've seen you interact with Dustin, but I don't really know much about you except you flip all sorts of different cards and items. And just from your videos and us chatting, I know you're a smart dude. So who are you? Let's start right there.
Man, I'm just your average everyday guy. I just, I do the cards for the fun, for the hobby. It turned into something bigger than I originally thought it was going to be when I first started. But I'm just an everyday working dude. Come home, have fun with the cards, flip some cards, buy, sell, trade, collect, a little bit of everything, and as well as a little bit of everything. Work in a casino. That's my job. It's how I pay my bills, take care of my family. My wife, she helps take care of the family too. But yeah, that's what I do. And this is just here, and the YouTube thing happened, and met some people in the community, and it's just been awesome. And I'm here on your show, and that's cool.
That's it, man. Well, look, I know we talked briefly about your experience at the casino, and I want to touch on that because, when you think of counting cards and gambling and all this, you think, all right, there's an element here that could tie into sports cards and everything else we're doing. So how is your experience in the casino? Because you're not like a janitor or you're not like a male stripper that I know of, but what is your experience in the casino? How's that helped you with understanding the flip game of cards? Because there are some similarities there.
Yeah, risk reward. That's huge. Risk reward is something I measure. It's one of the three main things I probably live by when I'm going to make an investment, risk reward. And, being in a casino business isn't always, you see a lot of people lose, more so than you see people win. That's just the way that it's built. The casino wouldn't exist if people won all the time. And so it's made me be conservative, smart with my money. I know how you can just put something out there and be like, hey, I'm going to take this money and it's going to double up. And it doesn't happen in the casino or in cards. And it just makes me go through more of a conservative and smart thought process when I decide where I'm going to put my money.
Yeah. What's interesting is that when we spoke for a few minutes right before this, we both are pretty conservative, right? And I think also when I look back to where card prices were a year and a half ago, it scares me because you have to be conservative when you see a very high-end card that was a tenth of the price 18 months ago. Not even that long. Not like 10 years or 20 years. Not like real estate where it's like, oh, that was the 90s, that was the 80s. And we're talking about 2019, a card was $200 and today it's 2,000. And so when I think of upside, downside, and risk reward, I'm like, I got to be very conservative because I'm not playing with house money. I'm putting in my hard-earned, saved money into something else. It's not like I was in this 8 years ago and then everything jumped up and now I'm just doing it with the same high-end cards, but now extra zeros are attached. So, and I saw a really good question by Carlos here, so I want to touch on that. But in terms of risk reward and how you weigh things, because I feel like you're very logical, you're very smart. How do you go in with a player or a card? What's your thought process of analyzing, is this a good investment using the risk reward type of approach?
Well, price point is always where I start. And a lot of times that's regardless of the player or the card brand or anything. It's going to be price point because I believe that at the right price point, anything can have some value to it. Because the market is so overreactive. I don't even use the word reactive anymore. The market is so overreactive that if you get in on something at the basement, you're really limiting your risk because worst case scenario is that you may break even minus fees if you resell for what you bought for. And a lot of times it doesn't take much for something that's really cheap to take off because with everything being so expensive, a lot of times people are just looking for something to buy. And the mentality of, it's the fear of missing out, the FOMO that everybody's been talking about. When something happens with a player in the news, people get caught up in the moment and not necessarily the big picture. Sam Darnold got traded to Carolina. That was a moment, and people bought cards based on that moment. But really, what is the big picture there? So, that's things that I look at. And then, what is going to satisfy me as far as a profit margin? Am I willing to risk $1,000 for a card that I think is going to max out at $1,400? That's not something that I would do. Risking $1,000 to win 400. I mean, that's what I would call being in the house's favor. If I was to use a casino term, if you can get in something small, like I'm a craps instructor as well. So I teach dice a lot. I know the numbers around a dice table. There's a bet on a dice table.
What's with the name craps? That's like the worst name ever.
Yeah, I know. I call it dice because there's different types of craps. So, and one of them is actually called.
I know. You got the soft, you got the green, right. You got the really hard to get out, you got the kind that clogs the toilet. Okay. All right. Go back to your story. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, but so there's small bets on a dice game. There's one that's it's 9-1 in the house's favor, but you put $1 on it, and if you win $10. However, if you win that $10 and you do what's called a parlay, you leave it out there and it hits again. Now you turn your dollar into pretty much, another $100. So
okay.
But what happens is if you lose, you lost your initial dollar. So I kind of look at things from that aspect where how can I snowball things up? So basically it's like a snowball effect. Can I get something? Can I get this item cheap, snowball it up to this amount to buy this card, and then snowball that card up to actually get to my final goal type of card?
So, I mean, look, I feel like what you're saying is very similar to my logic, which is lots of singles, the occasional double, and then if I hit a triple, that's great. I'm not going for the home runs, but once in a while, because of market circumstances or whatever else, it'll be a home run on accident, but I'm not banking on home runs. I know that 50 singles will get me to where I want to go without the risk involved. And so I'd rather go for those singles as well. So what's an example of a player or a card, either recently or in the past, that you use this on? Like you use this approach of, okay, I want someone in the basement that has way more upside than downside based on price. And I actually have an example based on my last Mail Week video that no one has talked about this guy. But when I mentioned it, there was some people thought it was a great investment. Others thought it was horrible. But I want to hear an example from you first, and then we'll compare.
Okay, well, the first one I did, that was my really big one when I got back into this, was Ryan Tannehill. And this is when he went to Tennessee for the first time, and he wasn't the starter. And I had Ryan Tannehill cards because I'm a Dolphins fan. I knew about him as a player, and he was basement. He was a basement buy. And he necessarily wasn't even the starter, but he was the better quarterback there. And what happened was I bought a lot of his really high-end stuff, like his contenders on-card auto tickets, graded. And I'm talking to, they were like $30. I mean, they were really basement. And what happened, they pushed into the playoffs, and they eliminated New England and the Ravens, that was the Lamar Jackson MVP year. They were favorites. And I flipped those cards for about $450 a piece that I was in on at $30. And then I took that money and I put it into nothing but Optic and Select Patrick Mahomes cards and about 3 2003 Topps LeBron James PSA 9s. So I turned Ryan Tannehill, about, I'm going to say $300 or $400 worth of Ryan Tannehill cards into 3 LeBron PSA 9 rookies and 5 Patrick Mahomes PSA 10 rookies in Optics and Select. Because at the time, those cards were only sitting at about $220. And I was buying 2 PSA 10 Mahomes for every Tannehill that I had sold, and my initial buying was $30.
All right, so that's pretty damn impressive. What's funny about you mentioning that is the more I'm in the hobby and I'm learning, and I feel like I'm very good at being majority logical, very little emotional. Like I am very good at saying, all right, well, what's the bigger picture? Where are most people overreacting, and how do I counter that? Almost to the point where I don't want the safe cards as much. I kind of want the more volatile cards just because I know that there are going to be a lot of people that will see one headline or look at a moment in time versus a 6 month or year period and then go all in or just overreact, like you were saying, on a certain player or an event. And I almost feel like, let me see who I can buy that I feel is at that floor, because everyone has given up on him. And all of a sudden, one headline in the right direction or one good performance, and all of a sudden everyone will be back on the bandwagon. I feel like it's that bandwagon thing. Everyone's on the bandwagon and everyone's off very quickly. And so the one example I had, which was very under the radar for me, and I think for most people, but I feel like it's a floor card as well, was Jacoby Brissett, where I say, this is a PSA 10 silver prism, and it was only silver that year, for $50. I can't imagine it being less for someone that is in the league and should be a backup for several years. Maybe not a starter, but someone that can go in for an injured quarterback, and just being named starter could turn that $50 card into $100, maybe $150, depending on the performance. But it was one of those thought processes or one of those theories of, can this card go any lower? And if I change my mind at any point up until the season starting, can I get out at the price I paid? And I think that's what's pretty cool, is when you go, I could change my mind and sell and break even, and I'm not risking – I'm not putting myself at risk. It's way more upside than downside, unless he retires or gets pushed further back on the depth chart. But $50 PSA 10 silver prism is not going to go down too much more than that.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty safe play.
All right. So where are you spending most of your time? Are you on these other platforms? Are you on eBay? Like, what's your range now? Because you were talking about some pretty big cards earlier. Are you just focusing on the high-end graded stuff, or are you all over the place?
eBay, Star Stock, ComC. I haven't done much with my slabs. Just haven't looked at it. Instagram, Facebook, in a lot of groups. I've gotten good, reputation there from selling and buying enough. That's actually where some of the better deals are at, because you can avoid a lot of fees and stuff as long as you're in a trusting group. So just wherever I can find. A lot of times eBay is where I'm going to find a lot of the things I'm looking for, because a lot of the stuff that I'm hunting right now is not easy to find. So the bigger the platform, the more likely it's going to be for me to find it. I'd like to get out to a show, which I haven't been out to in a while. Very limited to the LCSs in my area. I do visit them occasionally just because I like to support local business. But as far as finding a lot of items that I'm actually targeting, I don't find them that much there. But really anywhere that I can find something,
So what are you looking at now? All right, it's April 16th, and we have NBA heating up, we have NHL heating up, we have weather warming up, we have football getting closer to the draft, we have baseball going on, and then we have this crazy summer. And I'm very curious to hear what your take is over the next couple months, because obviously this summer is going to be way different than last. Are you in a holding pattern now? Are you more of like, all right, this is what I'll sell, this is what I'll buy? Because for me, I'm finding a lot of deals on what I think are deals on Hall of Famers and retired guys, and that huge spike that happened in January and February, where the prices of some of these guys like Hakeem and Karl Malone and Patrick Ewing, PSA 9s that are lower now than what they were even before December. Just very low, to the point where it's like, all right, back down to what I think is baseline. However, can it go down even more? And I'm not sure if that it can, but with all the travel and things opening up, I'm kind of interested to wait and see versus buying now. So what are your thoughts there?
I see a lot of opportunity in the basketball market all over. It's not just – I know the big talk is, when is Modern going to pop again or take off again? But I see lots of opportunity in the cards you were just talking about. And I think that the Modern market's going to be very selective this year. It's not just going to be everybody going crazy. It's going to be selective to certain players, maybe 10, small handful of players actually. And then I wouldn't be surprised if the vintage/80s market pushed up again before Modern did. I could see Modern just seeing a small rise, and we could have another full circle and have another boom in vintage before we see Modern take off again. with me, I've been busy with a lot of my football targets. But I've landed a lot of my football targets. So now I'm starting to look back into my basketball. As far as baseball goes, right now baseball is a sell for me because I think a lot of people are peaking. A lot of people are hitting their stride, and we're a couple of weeks in, and we know what happens after a couple of weeks in pretty much every sport. So for me, my baseball, my Shoheis, I've sold my Otanis last week. I only had like 3, but I sold my Otanis last week. Sold 2 Sotos. I sold the only Acuna I had. So I wasn't huge in on the baseball, but the young players that are peaking right now, to me, it was a selling point. Now, some people might want to hold. They might want a little bit more money, but I was in a really good price. And I believe people getting into the football card market early this year has also caused the modern NBA market to drag because the money is in a different market. And then I think there might be a big push, and it'll be quick and compact for the NBA market. And I'm actually going to be listing some players. I actually put 2 cards up today of some players that I'm looking to move out of, just because I think that people are going to start buying soon, and I'm going to have my cards on the market before everybody else.
So are you talking about NBA just playoff contenders? Are you talking about everyone? Because right now the playoff picture is starting to form where we're having a good idea as to who's going to be the top 4, 6 seeds of each conference. Where, I mean, I'm not playing that game. I'm not playing NBA playoffs. I've already pretty much not followed the season too closely. I'm already going into football and trying to get in very early there and then get out early there so I can buy in basketball off season very heavily. Mm-hmm. and not have to deal with the risk of injury or someone retires, like a week after changing teams with a irregular heartbeat or something. Crazy things happen. Obviously off season as well, but during the season you have more variables, and I'd rather make some money with low risk than go for a lot of money, but then have a good chance of losing money as well. So in terms of basketball, are you talking about every modern player? Are you talking about just playoff contenders, or you want to liquidate anyone you can right now before it goes further?
Playoff contenders, people pushing into the playoffs. Currently, my basketball, I'm buying modern basketball, but some of the modern basketball I'm actually buying for next season. I'm already buying some modern basketball for next season.
This early?
Yeah, because I wish I would have bought my football at last November.
Last November though, everything was really cheap. And my theory though is that wasn't as much off season as it was. Yes, it's off season, but you also have an election, and perhaps the most scary, controversial, whatever election ever, where everyone's has uncertainty. And then the last stimulus checks had run out September, or were distributed in September. So I actually think that late October, early November last year was more of an anomaly than just the off season. But I want to get your thoughts on that. But keep going with with what you're buying now.
Well, I just think with modern basketball, for myself, if there's like 3 really young players that I want to target that aren't household, that are kind of risky. Anybody pretty young is risky right now. But if I'm going to make any risky purchases right now, I'm going to look for players that I like that are on bad teams and have basically no kind of spotlight on them right now. And because there's a lot of money going into football, so that's causing them to be cheaper. Their teams aren't playing well. They're not in the media and things like that. And some of them have struggled, to be honest. But I think that the 2019, 2020 rookie class, they had some extreme circumstances on them. I think some of these players are going to develop a little bit slower just because of the limited seasons and all the COVID things and not being able to practice and being in the bubble and all that stuff. To be fair to a lot of these guys that may seem like they're getting slow starts to their careers not, their circumstances aren't doing them any favors. Now, you got players like Zion who are just exceeding expectations because he's staying healthy. But yeah, there's guys that I like that I think are good buys right now just because nobody else is buying them. And that's the thing. When there's no demand on something, it's always the best time to buy it. if you personally believe in it, though. And a lot of times I don't talk about these players because it's not that I try to keep secrets, but I don't want people to be like, oh, well, that's a good decision. He's buying that. That must be a good thing to buy. Really, it's my personal feeling or my thoughts towards a player. And I, could be completely off on a player.
Okay. Well, okay. A couple things come to mind. And for one, this month, there's been a lot of new products. We've had Select, we've had Prism, we have all of these products, which makes me think, is money flooding to retail and to breaks online versus to singles, which is kind of old news. And I can get that whenever. That could be bringing the prices down. So that's one thing I wanted to ask you about. But also talking about what hasn't worked out. I think I want to talk a bit about what we've learned from things not working out, because it's always nice to talk about the pros, but we've all had losses, and I want to touch on that. But before that, what's your take on, with all the new product coming out, do you think that is influencing the money that is going towards singles? And then leading up to summer, my whole philosophy is that, or not philosophy, but I'm thinking, man, I think people are going to travel and go places, and this is mostly disposable income. This is not like, hey, well, I have all this income in cards already. It's like I have an extra $500. Now I can put it into cards. Well, when the restaurants are open and when you can go on a cruise and when you can do all this for the first time, how much money is going to go there without stimulus also to add to the equation? So that's what I'm looking for. Like, what's your take on summer first?
Man, that's a tough question. I don't think there's going to be a strong exodus of money out of the market because, it's sports. Sports have always been around in some shape or form. The biggest time we ever lost sports was actually last summer, and this was everybody's sports fix, regardless of
sports this summer. We do have sports. We have sports and everything else this summer.
Yeah, but I believe that the people who got in, I don't think it's going to push them out. I think they found something new that they like that relates to something that they already liked. Now, I don't think we're going to have that perfect storm like we had last year. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't think that there's going to be a big pulling out of money from the market based on people spending their money elsewhere. Because – yeah, people could go on vacation, they could go out, they could go to restaurants and spend their money there, but they could also spend their money on other things than sports cards from their home.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm also thinking, man, warm weather, stuck inside for a year and a half, 2 years, and not stimulus money. If I have disposable income, I'm getting the hell out of my house. I'm taking these kids on a vacation. But I mean, that's more of like my lens that I'm looking at it through, because I can't wait to go on vacation. I haven't been on a vacation in a long time. So to me, I'm craving travel and that kind of stuff. Now, there's also a couple questions here about the Dallas show. Are you going to go? Are you going to go to the National? So I'm on the fence about this upcoming Dallas show, and I'm definitely going to go to the National. What about you, Steve?
My plans are definitely to go to the National, but it may not happen. If it, I hope it happens, and I don't want to. That's the thing about the National is that if you end up waiting for the National and it doesn't happen, then you've missed Dallas and things like that. So I'm not really sure. The next closest show to me, I think, is going to be in Chantilly, Virginia, and I'm going to attend that one, and then I'll get a feel for what's going on out in the market, because you can sit and buy stuff online and stuff all day, but when you get out into the buzz of a card show, you get a feel of what's really being or what's really trading hands and stuff amongst the collectors and the big time buyers, as opposed to just what you see yourself buying and selling, on a platform. And you see what's sitting stagnant in the people showcases, and that's kind of,
the one question I had was, I wonder if the travel will just mean people going to card shows and saying, I don't need to go on this vacation because now I can go here, buy some cards, have fun like I normally would, but then, turn it into investment. Maybe it's a vacation that pays for itself. Like, I'll go to Chicago for a week, 3 days are at the National, the other 3 to 4 days, it's enjoying Chicago for what it is, but I can pick up some investments that I believe will pay for the rest. So I think that'd be the perfect balance right there. Let's take a look at some other questions we have here. Do you have any thoughts on Topps going public and what that means? Do you have any take on that?
Well, it's I guess that means, are they selling shares out or something like that now? I don't follow the market on the companies and things like that, to be honest. Mostly just into the cards, and even when PSA was doing their whole, going private, it was kind of like I just let it go. I mean, whatever happened was going to happen, because it's rumors and innuendo. You don't know what's going to happen with new ownership or non-new ownership. It's something that I can't cross that bridge till I get to it. And if, I don't want to look too far ahead to something that might happen with a company, and then lose focus on actually what I got in front of me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I talked to Dustin about this briefly, but I didn't read all the details as to what this means. I just remember a year ago when I first got back in, talking to the card shop owner here in LA, who said that Panini owns the rights and they have a lot of money and they're always going to win this battle of licensing because they'll outbid anyone. And now that I see this with Topps, it looks like they could at least have a fighter's chance or a good bidding war to be able to take back the licensing. But again, that's, this hobby changes or this industry changes so often, like by the week, that I don't even want to get too far ahead of myself either, just because I feel like every single month, like this time next month, there will be 5 new headlines, 3 record-breaking sales, a new platform, everything. So what's the point of thinking even a year or 2 out at this point? Because it's just too crazy. Okay, how about buying next season? So I'm guessing Akeen, I don't know if it's Akeen or, I guess it's Akeen, is talking about basketball, but do you have any targets you want to share with us on who you're buying for next year?
Oh, sure. For next season, so these are guys that have pretty much been written off this year. A lot of the names are common, but I'm still a big believer in Rui Hachimura, and people don't necessarily agree with me on that one, but he's gotten better all year, and he's on a team with 2 ball dominant guards, Beal and Westbrook, and he still goes out and has been playing really, really well on a bad team. And I like his appeal as being a Japanese player. I think that gives him a little bit more of a market. It gives him more collectability, even if he doesn't become a superstar player. It's kind of like the Yao Ming effect. Yao Ming was a pretty good player. I guess some people would consider him to be a superstar, but he had that appeal that added more to his market and for his cards. But somebody called me an idiot in the comments and said the Wizards are trash, but I just said he was playing for a bad team. I'm not here saying put your money on the Wizards to win the title. But
right. Well, I mean, then it also comes down to at what price are you paying, right? I mean, you're paying a floor price. Like I know the name Karl Anthony Towns was thrown around by other content creators, and I'm like, well, you have a good player, dude. I was buying Nikola Vucevic cards because they were $8 for Prism Raw card on Comp C, and I'm like, this is the best player the Magic have, and just that right there should be enough. And I, bought for 8, sold for 26, right? Not the biggest margin ever, but it's not like I'm paying a lot of money. It's more like this is such a low price that even if it goes up $8, $20, $100, if it's a high-end PSA 10, that's a good profit. Because at the end of it, like a $10,000 card that you sell for $10,040 versus a card that you buy for $100 and sell for $200, I'd rather have the $100 card that sells for $200 than the $10,000 card that only goes up 1%, and you put in all that money there. And there's that downside that it goes. Yeah.
And you hit the nail on the head when you said price point. I mean, I'm buying a player like that because I believe he's at his basement, and it doesn't take a whole lot, especially when it's young players that people want to see do well. I mean, it's not like these are players that people don't like and that still don't have some buzz around them. It doesn't take a whole lot to really flip out of those cards and make yourself a profit, and then take that money and put it into something that you necessarily wouldn't shell out for, or something safe. Because, the biggest part of my portfolio is backed by what I call concrete cards, just because I always have those to fall back on, my Kobe's, my LeBrons. I got a box that I keep them separate. Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson stuff, just stuff that is safe, allows me to put some risk on top of it, because if you played everything safe, you would have all your assets tied up for long term, and then you wouldn't have something coming in and out constantly.
Right. And I honestly, I like the game. I like active players because I get to react to the way others overreact. That's what I want my game to be. You know, I bought a couple Hakeem Olajuwon PSA 9s, and I kind of regret it because, for one, I didn't get it at the very bottom price. I paid about $1,400 each, and I think the last sales were about $1,100. So long term, it's fine. However, I've got to wait for something external to really bring up his prices. I can't say, you know what, but he is going to be talked about because he's a free agent or because of this. I can't play that game, because I think what excites me too is knowing that I have more patience than the average person. I think further out. I think like 6 to 8 months out by default. I don't think a month or 2 months. And as a fault, I'd say I'd think too far in advance, to the point where I don't need to even think that far in advance.
Right.
I was thinking about Space Jam a year ago just because I knew it was going to happen. And I'm like, well, I could have waited longer to get in, and I could have done some other things. But I honestly, I like playing that. What's going to happen? How can I use people's impatience and emotional overreaction to my advantage, which is if I just do a bit more research, if I take an extra month or 2 months to get the return I want, if I get out a bit early, if I stick true to just, hey, I made my 50% or 80% or something and I'm out, that is better than I'm going to let it ride, because I don't want to let it ride.
Right. And in my last video, I compared that Olajuwon card. I actually compared the Olajuwon card with Nikola Jokic Prism rookies from this year. So I compared the PSA 10 Jokic, which is floating around $1,300 to $1,500 at the same price as of a PSA 9 Hakeem Olajuwon. And I said, for right now, if I'm trying to make myself $1,000 in the next 2 months, I'm going to go with the Jokic card because of his MVP and the fact that the Nuggets are a legitimate team in the West, even with the Murray injury, in my opinion. And you see the price of Giannis prisms and stuff when he won his first MVP. So it's like, I believe that the potential in that card for a short term, buy it for $1,500 and possibly sell it for $2,500 in 2 months, is a good, if you're willing to take that risk, is a nice card. But if you're asking me what I would rather buy in the long run with my $1,300, I'm going to buy the Olajuwon and be patient with it. So it's what you're looking for in your window. Are you looking to make something quick? Go with that Jokic card. If you're looking for a safer long-term investment, go with the Olajuwon card. And that was how I was comparing some of my thoughts. Because if you buy, I believe you have time with the Olajuwon. You buy the Jokic now, you make money off of it. You could probably buy the Olajuwon with your profits, and it's almost like you got a free card.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I get people think that I am all about active players being better investments, and it's not better investments. It's more like using gambling to your advantage. I mean, even the Hakeem Olajuwons I bought, even all these cards, I still think like I want to get rid of it in 6 months or 8 months because I don't know where the hobby is going to evolve to in several years. I like the idea of being able to hold it for 5 years and 10 years and feel safe. But no matter what, I want to get in and out because I also enjoy the in and out. I like the game of it. I like being able to move new cards. And it sucks when I don't sell cards because then I'm like, oh, now I can't buy anything new. Now I can't start the search again and find the next deal, whether I'm right or wrong. Now, I saw a couple comments here. One about a card show on tomorrow, and I don't think I'll be going to that one. I think it's Mark's Cards. I heard about it, but it's a bit too far for me. I plan on going to the other show. And then also, let's talk about like something that has not worked out. What is something that has not panned out at all? Like it was just a lousy investment, and then not only that, you had a really valuable learning lesson attached to it.
There's probably 2 cards right now that if I was to sell right now, I haven't sold, so I haven't taken the loss on them yet. I still have faith in the cards, well, at least one of them. But I came in on the Anthony Davis Prism rookie last year in a PSA 10. I came in on that at $2,500.
What time
So
of the year? Because I know that chart very well, and that's
yeah, and it
up. Oh, that was in my last video, actually.
you
Yeah,
know the
that
funny thing is
me and
the
Dustin
funny
were
thing
looking
is
at that card.
yeah, the funny thing about that card is I bought it for 2,500 before I even got it in the mail. The 3 days it took to get to my house, it hit 3,800. So I was like, man,
That
things
was
are
the
looking
top.
good.
3850 was the highest sale. I remember.
Yeah, so before it was even in my hands, I was like, man, I almost listed it off the scan that I bought it from. I was like, man, this is instant. I'm selling this now. I end up holding it for the year, and now it's probably about an $18 to $2,000 card. So if I was to go ahead and sell at market now, I'm taking a loss. And I did the same thing on a Kawhi, but the Kawhi was in a PSA 9, and I bought the Kawhi around 1,100. So that card is sitting at about maybe 7 or 8. So that's two cards on two established players, popular cards, liquid cards, if I was to move out of right now. And then some stuff due to grading companies is actually going to probably cost me to take a loss due to the fact that there's lots of cards that I'm not going to get graded anymore, and they're probably going to be harder for me to move raw. So some raw cards that I have sitting that if things don't change with the grading companies, they're probably just going to sit for a while.
Just because it's not worth the express or whatever service,
Right.
walkthrough service of PSA, but you're not wanting to take it to a different grading company?
Well, all the grading, like I will use SGC, especially for cards that I'm very low invested in. Like some Marvel stuff. Like I talked to you off screen about things that that I will buy so that I have something to sell when everybody else is selling the same thing. If everybody's listing the same cards that I have, I won't list mine. But I'll make sure that I have other things in my inventory that other people aren't selling so that I still have a constant flow of income going in and out, whether that be Marvel cards or tennis cards or golf cards or whatever it is. Now they're less liquid, but you know, you can do very well on them. I did good on a nice Marvel card submission just because they were all SGC slabs, but it's because there's not even any slab competition for those cards. You know, if I list my SGC Marvel card slabs, it's not even like I'm competing with PSA slabs. It's like there's like no competition at all. And these cards that I buy for $2 and $3 at the time, I could get them graded for $25. So I'm looking at anywhere between $25 and $30 investment, and I'm happy to take $60 to $75 a card for them. Now that's a lot more work because it's a lot more transactions that have to add up for your money, but still it keeps you busy and it keeps you having an income coming in when everybody else is busy chopping their feet out from under each other, selling the same card at the same time.
Yeah. You know, what's funny about that is I realized with the Kobe cards I bought, I think I lucked out because I accidentally picked that faster service, the $25 service versus the bulk. But because I did that, there were not a lot of listings on eBay with these cards that soon. And so I was able to sell pretty much everything at a profit. But the big lesson that we talked about a bit earlier was that if you're on eBay looking at a card, you know, we talk about supply and demand and pop reports and print runs and all that kind of stuff. But the supply on eBay at a given moment of time where there might be one card that you've been looking at, and you know, like I'll give one example. Nikita Kucherov is a great player for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and his PSA 10 Upper Deck Young Guns rookie card, I watch it on my eBay search, and it rarely pops up. Like literally once every 2 or 3 weeks, there is a listing for it, and I'm like, how in the world is the main rookie card of this guy only popping up every couple of weeks, just one? And of course, every time it goes to auction, it just sells for such a high number, even though he's been injured the entire year. And I'm like, man, that's insane. But then if you find an auction where there's 6 listings from Probstein or PWCC, you'll see like, you know, in your eBay search, your email that notifies you, you'll see like 8 of the cards being listed at the same time. And that's when I get excited, because that's when I know there's a good chance that one of those listings is going to sell for $200 less than the other, depending on the price range of the card. And there's a good time to swoop in and get it, because even if there are other people watching these auctions, only a few of them might actually want to bid on every single card and be okay with winning every single one and being financially able to fulfill that.
Right.
But I'll look at that. So if you ever see 8 of the same card or 4 of the same card listed ending at the same day, that's a good sign. And I think that's what happened with Deshaun Watson, to be honest, too, because I think everyone listed Deshaun Watson cards at the same time, which really helped plummet his price, because if there were only a few of them on eBay, yeah, there would be lower numbers than what it was a month or two ago. But when you have 85 listings of Prism Silver Deshaun Watson PSA 10s, then all of a sudden you're like, all right, now it's a buyer's market, not a seller's market.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I never mind selling early because a lot of people have the same mentality of when they're going to sell, and I want to stay out of that. And a lot of times it's logical thinking on their part. It's not that they don't know what they're doing. It's logical thinking. And but if everyone else is thinking logical, sometimes you got to think outside the box in order to be ahead of the logical thinkers.
Well, we'll say, all right, this is a good point too, because we were talking about this briefly before, where look, to buy off season and sell before the playoffs, to do all this, it works until enough people realize that's the thing to do. And then all of a sudden, week of the playoffs, everyone lists their cards. A week before preseason starts, everyone lists their cards. So the idea of buy off season and sell right before the season starts is a great rule of thumb until enough people catch on, and the supply on eBay and on all these other websites dictate that everyone knows that strategy. And then all of a sudden, those that sold a bit before that are the ones that really won. So, I mean, I think of it more of like, look, a lot of us are entering our second year or third year back into the hobby, and we're learning a lot. And we have the data tools now. We can see past charts. We can understand human behavior a bit more. And we can understand, hey, people are watching YouTubers, they're listening to podcasters, they're seeing all this stuff happen. And if everyone is going to go along the same lines as what happened in the past, you got to understand some people are going to be like, well, shouldn't we evolve a bit? If everyone knows to list here, there's going to be some people that say, I think everyone is going to list at this time and for this price. Let me just get out a bit before that. So I'd rather be on that side as well, where I'm in too early and I'm out still early versus I'm in at a good time, but then I might be out late. And if you're out late, then it really sucks.
Yeah. I also think it's smart to get into cards that you can specifically target a collector with. Because, the investors are, everyone in the market's getting smarter. And that's pretty much what you were just referencing. And people are reacting less. And when everybody's selling the same thing, if you have that card that targets a collector is always going to pay a premium for a card that they want a PC. And the collectors have been around forever. They never left the hobby. They've been here since the beginning, and they'll be here when a majority of just the flippers and stuff decide to move on to the next big thing. And the collectors will still be here. And that's why I'm a firm believer in buying a lot of cards that I think I can move on to collectors, because they're going to still hold a lot of desirability, just because somebody wants to put them in their box and keep it there, not necessarily buy it and resell it. A lot of times that's why you see base cards being more liquid, and you're like, man, why are these cool parallels and numbered cards not selling? It's because you have lots of investors buying off investors, and they're just changing hands, and then a really nice rare card will finally sell, and then it'll go and you put away.
So all right, let me ask you about that, because I focus on the liquid cards for now, because my strategy is to sell more to flippers that are getting in after me, because I know that I'd rather be too far ahead and buy low and then sell with enough meat on the bone for them to buy and then do their thing. Yeah. But in terms of cards for collectors, a lot of these players haven't established a legacy to be collectible yet, right? If you have a rookie that comes into the year, into the season, you can get his RPA, you can get his number to 25, parallel, whatever, but they haven't earned that level of collectability because they just have a college resume and maybe they've been mediocre in the league. So I would love to get a card that I could sell to a flipper and to a collector if the player pans out. But the problem is that when I have a card that if that player does well, right? The player has a
Mm-hmm.
200-yard receiving game, 2 touchdowns, whatever, or 40-point game off the bench in basketball. What card do people flock to? And they don't flock to the number to 25, whatever. Not in my experience. They're flocking to Prism, Prism Silver, Optic, Optic Hollow.
Yep.
And so now I'm in a situation where it's like, all right, well, do I get these collector-based cards of a player having, knowing that they have got to pan out for the entire year and 2 years and 3 years? Or do I just go with the most liquid card so when they have that ridiculous performance, I can get out because everyone is chasing the currency card? So the real question is there a card that you feel covers both bases? Because I'd much rather have have an additional insurance policy in place rather than picking which side.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to my my Roy Hachimura purchases, because even if he doesn't become a superstar, he has collectability because of his Japanese international appeal, in my opinion. I believe there'll always be a market for that. I mean, Ichiro, when he came into the Major League Baseball, before he was a Hall of Famer, which he turned into, he was highly collectible by the Japanese market. Like big time. I mean, he hadn't even played yet. Everybody wanted his stuff because of his, nationality. So you can relate something like that to Roy Hachimura. I'm not saying he's going to be the basketball equivalent of Ichiro, but what I'm saying is that there will be people who collect him based on that alone. And he can just be a 15-point a player night for his career, but there will be people that like him for that reason.
So then maybe, so then the question would be, would you go in on a rare parallel of Rui, or would you go with the Prism Silver? Because like the thing with Rui is I haven't followed him much this year. I saw he had like COVID and then the Wizards suck and whatnot. But the one thing is that being Japanese in the year where the Olympics are in Japan, that makes me think, how much media attention is Japan going to have on Rui? Are they going to build him up bigger than he actually is because of how important he is to them in the sport of basketball, or not? Or will it be something that maybe that's what they do, but here in American media, it's kind of glossed over. We only get Team USA, blah, blah, blah. I like the upside of Rui this summer, but not like that's the only reason to invest, because if it doesn't work out, then it's like.
And if you relate it to Luca, Luca is a great player. He's one of the best players in the league. However, he's priced higher than a lot of people that are his equivalent, or even better. But he's priced higher, and it has a lot to do with international appeal. A lot of the players that. He's better than Trae Young, but look at their prices coming into the season. What additional thing does Luca have driving his market besides his play on the court and how young he is and people predicting what his future is going to be? He has European appeal, and there's definitely money coming in, on his cards just based on that added aspect to him.
Yeah, it's an additional upside, and he's exciting and all that. Now, I did see a lot of questions here regarding certain players, so I want to run through it real quick. Just first take on what you think of these players' cards right now. Would you buy? Would you sell? Would you hold? Would you, do you not have an opinion? So Tim Duncan's one guy I see here. What's your thoughts on Tim Duncan?
For Tim Duncan prices, I would go elsewhere. So usually there's never anything against a player as opposed to what else could I get for my money at this moment. And, when is a Tim Duncan card going to be liquid enough for me to want to move on it? So Tim Duncan took a long time to get notoriety, and then just as fast as it came and his cards blow up, it went away. So could he be a coach someday or something like that? He's not the personality that Shaquille O'Neal is. So
not at all. He's like the opposite, man.
Yeah,
he's the neighbor I want to have. I want to have Tim Duncan's all around me just because I know I'd never have to have a noise complaint called on him.
Yeah. So, I'm guessing for Tim Duncan price point, there's probably multiple other players I would rather buy. But, he's a top 10 player of all time, I would say. But, that's the thing when you say somebody has to have something else added to him other than being a great player.
Jason Kidd, Grant Hill, any thoughts there, one way or the other?
Yeah, I would stay away from those. They're kind of in the middle of that 90s era when the cards were printed out a lot. You're going to need high grades. And, you know, Grant Hill just was injured his entire career. Could have been great. And Jason Kidd, again, you know, there has to be a catalyst.
Yeah. I think sell me on why someone would buy Jason Kidd or Grant Hill right now, right? Are there some Jason Kidd and Grant Hill collectors out there? Sure, there are some.
Yeah.
However, that's not enough for me to choose to put my money in those players. Same with Tim Duncan, where I said, yeah, he's great, but if I could choose between all these 90s players or 2000s players that have had their prices drop a ton, Kobe would be on my list. Shaq would be on my list. In terms of 80s, I would have Charles Barkley, because at least I could say there is legitimate reason why I would watch them on TV coming up. And yes, we're talking about Hall of Fame for Tim Duncan, but I'm like, that is one glimpse versus Shaq is always on TV and likable. Yeah. Charles is always on TV and likable. Kobe will always be one of the most collectible and admired players, period. And he has the documentary. He has all Hall of Fame. He has Magic Johnson documentary. There's a lot of ties there. But I need reasons, not just like, yeah, maybe. Like, because there's a chance that Jason Kidd ends up in the news for whatever reason. But of all the 80s, 90s, 2000s guys, I would go with ones that I could actually say, you know what, those prices are low, and I have 2 or 3 reasons why it could actually go up.
Yeah, and the Shaq rookies actually, they dipped, and people caught that, and it didn't last very long because by the time it took me to do a video and upload it, I had to change my Shaq prices because his 92 tops had dipped to about $600. Its original basement was always $300, and we saw it push $1,500 during the whole run this year. And then there were some sales at around $600 on that card. Now it's pushed up back up over $750 because people saw that hit 600 and they were like, we're not going to let this. They're not going to let this happen. At $600, we're coming back in on this card. So
I think, yeah. And I mean, look, Shaq to me is one of the most versatile investments, period, because you have one of the best centers who's also a great personality. He's going to be on TV as long as he wants to be. He's tied to Michael Jordan in terms of playing against Michael. And I think with Michael on the Dream Team or in All-Star games, playing with Kobe, and I think playing with LeBron, right? He played a year with LeBron. So he covered 3 of the greatest ever, three of the GOATs over the 90s, 2000s, and 2010s, and is still relevant. And you have Kobe documentary. Like Shaq, I'm like, dude, his prices can go up for 5 or 6 different reasons over the next few years versus someone like Tim Duncan. I'd rather pay a good price for Shaq than probably a great price for Tim Duncan, just based on the confidence I would have that I'd be able to move the Shaq at a profit at some point over the next year or 2. But that's the way I like to think. He's like, if you're retired, then what are the actual reasons? Not could it happen? Yeah, sure. Anything could happen. I need a bit more than that.
Yeah, you always got to look for the catalyst. And then you got to say, is the catalyst realistic or is it a long shot?
Yeah.
And what potential, what is the highest potential a card could reach based on this catalyst, even if it did happen?
Yeah, I mean, look, it always boils down to opportunity cost. Like, why invest in a mediocre player or card when you put it side to side next to 10 other investments and you go like, this one has a better likelihood. Now, if the Jason Kidd rookie card PSA 10 was like $40 or $30, then maybe I'm like, all right, well, damn, compared to $500 or $700, that $40 could probably go up to $80 with one little headline or $100. But even then, I'm like, I'm hoping, I'm crossing my fingers more than anything. The Shaq at a low price, or Kobe at a low price, or Jordan at a low price, I feel so good that I can get out whenever I want, right? If you at the low point, it's like, look, I changed my mind. I'm just wanting to liquidate at cost. But the other guys, it might just be tough to get out because you have to find the right buyer. So I'm with you on that. Any other thoughts you have regarding, let's say, the grading companies or anything regarding your strategy with the way things are at this moment?
Man, I'm not doing a whole lot of grading right now, and that was my big thing. Actually, I don't want to get off of the card topic, but I've been doing a lot of comic book stuff because I see the opportunity in that market the same way it was with cards, where the grading companies aren't overwhelmed and it's affordable and You can buy raw comic books and grade them just like you can cards. So, and it's still able to be done, and census reports are low. With cards, you know, I don't like buying high-end raw cards unless I can see them before I buy them. I don't like buying the type of card I would have to send to PSA right now. I don't like buying raw off the internet because it's going to be a high-end card at these PSA, $300 prices. It's going to have to really be the last big raw card that I bought was a 2003 Topps LeBron rookie, but I was able to see it before I bought it. So I didn't mind. I paid $700 for it raw, but I didn't mind because I was able to get a look at it and kind of be confident in what kind of grade I might be able to get out of it.
Yeah, I feel you there. In terms of raw cards, I'm not even dealing with it. I will say where my strategy is at right now with everything going on, I'm not looking at other opportunities just because I love cards. I have no connection to comics because it's not something I grew up with. I am curious to see the amount of cards that will be coming back from PSA over the summer, the amount of money that will be perhaps leaving just for a few months when other opportunities come out. Maybe NFL has their top shot. I think they're working on that. UFC has theirs. I'm wondering how, because look, cards are here to stay long term, but how much for that, flavor of the week, people will leave for a week, a month, 2 months to try something new and then realize, maybe they make their money, maybe they lose their money and then get back in. Long term, I'm like, look, cards are fine. We have generations involved. We have fathers and sons. We have grandfathers and grandsons. We have like everything for me to believe in it. But this summer, I'm just very curious to see without the stimulus, with all the options and with PSA closed down and more cards hitting the market, will that be the time to buy? And so I'd say as much as I want to buy cards right now, I'm actually wanting to hold off even more for about another month, let the playoffs really get into the focus of the attention of NBA and NHL, let the draft end, the NFL draft end, so that really football's talked about for a bit, and then wait for people to have a lot of other ways to spend their money. When that happens, I'd be very curious to see what kind of deals pop up around late May, early June, when you have less money, but you got a lot of places to spend it. And maybe I'm right. Maybe enough people will enter the hobby that it just negates everything I'm thinking. But to me, I'm trying to not buy at this point. And I don't have much to sell. So it's kind of a weird spot where I only have football. And I want to dump football in the months leading up to the season, but not too late. So that's where I'll leave it for now.
Yeah, and I'm doing more selling than I am buying right now. I've really pulled the reins back on buying, especially large amounts of cards and, lower end slabs and things like that. And I've gotten a lot of my targets, whether they're targets I want to keep for a month or 6 months. So as far as my buying goes, I'm kind of set in. And now I'm starting to, when I go to buy a card, another big thing is I have an end game for that card pretty much when I buy it, at least an end game that I'm hoping for. Whether it's the profit margin I'm happy with within a window. If I plan on selling a card in a month and that month is there and I'm happy with that profit margin, even if I think it still has potential, my plan was to sell that card in a month. Because if you don't, you start to get in the habit of holding everything and then you just have cards pile up on you and then you get stuck with things and you're not you have inventory going in and out. But yeah, I've really pulled back on my buying, doing a lot more selling right now because I believe, especially with basketball, modern basketball, people are going to start buying soon, and I want to have my listings up before everybody starts buying.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, I'm in the similar boat right now, and I think the one mistake I wanted to share real quick was also that with those Hakeem Olajuwons, I was very eager to buy on the dip, but not waiting for it to really stabilize. And so I bought it when it was going down, but it hadn't hit a point where enough investors started buying at that threshold where it was more of a floor or a basement of that card. So now the learning lesson is even if I'm eager to buy cards as investments because I know I needed to stock up now in order to flip around summer to then do it again and hopefully make a return a couple times over, I need to still wait an extra couple weeks. It's not the end of the world to not buy any cards for 2 weeks or a month or 2 months, because if you look at it in an entire year or
Mhm.
2-year window, but I like to think of it like a year window. Some months maybe you just drop $10,000 and be like, all right, I'm done for the year because the opportunities were really there. And then you say, you know what, I'm going to coast for a while and I'll see some okay deals, but I'm not going to be eager to pull the trigger. So even I was a bit emotional on those, not waiting for it to hit a price that I should have, to be honest. But
yeah, my toughest thing is impulse, and my toughest thing to deal with is impulse. Sometimes I get excited for a card, and when I see that price, I'm just like, man, that's a good deal. I got to take it.
Here's the thing, and it's not impulse for I want the card for myself. I get impulsive on investments because I see, hey, this could be a great opportunity. It kind of makes sense, and it makes somewhat sense. It always makes somewhat sense. It just doesn't make as precise sense as I would like, and it's not as strict as I would like based on how I've done it in the past and what's worked. So for me, I use the charts. I want to see the prices not only go down but start to stabilize for me to entertain the idea. And look, it is very easy. We all know this. It's very easy to drop $2,000 in 10 minutes. If you want on eBay. So it's not like, oh my God, will there be other deals? There will always be deals as long as certain people are emotional, as sports are changing, as the market's changing, with all factors changing, there's always going to be deals.
I mean, really what it boils down to, even if you buy something and it's not quite at its basement, I mean, if you're satisfied with your purchase and you believe in the potential of it, it's still worth it, especially to the individual, because everybody has a different goal. But I mean, a lot of times I don't mind overpaying slightly for a card that I really believe in the potential of, because if I don't overpay a little bit and I end up missing out, then I will cost myself more in the long run. And also to touch on, there was an 86 Fleer rookie card that I was looking at in a PSA 9, and it was hovering right around the $300 mark. And I was like, when this hits 250, I'm going to be in.
Patrick?
And no, actually it wasn't. But it started coming down to that 275, and I was like, at 250, I'm in. And then I didn't get in, and a week later, they're pushing 350, and that's about where they've reestablished themselves at. So I'm like, I just should have went at 300. And it relates to the Shaq card I was just talking about. That card got to $600, and if you're sitting there waiting at $500, I'm pulling the trigger at 500, and now a week later it's at 750, and it'll probably never bottom back out to 600. It's probably established its basement at 750, and now you're like, man, I should have been in at 6.
What's interesting about you saying that is, one thing I've started doing differently is I'm looking up a lot of cards that have dropped the most over the last 60 days. So a lot of the Hall of Famers, a lot of the Kobes, a lot of that stuff, and I'm watching them all on eBay. And when the auctions end, if there is not a floor established already, I will have my highest price at a steal. So now what's different now between now and let's say a couple months ago is now I'm like, what is my steal price? And because I'm looking at so many cards and the numbers have gone up, every card I buy, I want to say, I got a steal. And if the answer is no, then I'm okay just missing out on that auction and waiting for the next, because I'm looking at more than just a few cards. I'm looking at lots of Kobes and lots of Shaqs and lots of Hall of Famers and lots of active players. And I'm just looking for the steals. I'm looking for, okay, this looks like the card that would go below the floor price, and the next one would rebound another 20% and then be established there. And if that's my highest price and I win that because it's a Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast, that's or the seller took a lousy picture, or what I just saw yesterday, the seller put PSA with some fire emojis, but didn't put PSA 10, and it was actually a PSA 10, and there were like 22 watchers, while another card that was a PSA 10 that was ending around the same time had like 70 watchers. And I'm like, why in the world would you not put PSA 10 in the title? Why would you only put PSA with fire emojis?
That's it.
But you get stuff like that, and that card sold for about $100 less than the other listing. So, and I didn't win it because I was like, I bought several of that card, and I'll reveal that in the next Mail Week video. But it was one of those things where I'm like, man, you listed the card wrong, and someone got a steal based on you not putting the 10 in there. But if you look at enough auctions, you'll be able to pick those up and then cherry pick steals versus just, yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, that was pretty good. So that's what's changed for me. But anyway, Steve, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to hop out. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Steve, where can people find you?
Oh, Flippin' Steve YouTube channel. S Gray out 7, SGRAYOUT out 7. And that's on Instagram. It's just like S Gray and out 7, like a dice table, because I work in a casino. And I got a Facebook group, and I'm, Dustin. I'm around in the community.
Yeah, you're always around. You're always sharing a great insight, but also just good vibes as well. And it's always nice talking to you and making fun of Dustin together. So that's a pastime I'm starting to enjoy more and more than cards itself, is just making fun of Dustin. So
it's easy. It's easy, right?
It's too easy, man. It's just, it's softballs every time. You just hit it out of the park. He gets a haircut that's goofy and he's not looking in the lens. I mean, it's like, come on. So anyway, guys, definitely check out Steve's channel, Flippin' Steve. Again, if you are interested in trying out market movers, comeback20 is the promo code. You get 20% off. It does help me out. If you're not interested, don't worry about it, but it does help me, and I appreciate you everyone out there that is supporting me that way. Guys, have a wonderful weekend. Go to your local card show, local card shop, and follow Flippin' Steve, and we'll see you guys next time.